Hey guys, so welcome back to the series where we review my personal Criterion collection, and today is actually going to be our first movie, a part of the French New Wave movement of the late 50s, early 60s, and that movie is actually considered one of the originators, one of the term and of the movement, and that would be Hiroshima Mon Amour. Which is number 196 in the collection and was released in 1959. So since this is our first film within the French New Wave, and we'll have a few more down the line, I want to sort of give a brief, very simple history lesson on what the French New Wave is. So essentially in the late 50s, a bunch of French film critics and directors and very artistic people sort of got tired with the way films were being made. They thought they were all very formulaic, they weren't really pushing the medium forward. And so rather than just complaining about it, a lot of them got some independent funding and were able to make their own movies. And the three big movies that are really credited with starting the movement would be Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless, which sort of put him at this superstar status, or shot him to superstar status once the movie released, and he had a very long career that's still going, in fact. Francois Truffaut's The 400 Blows, which for my money, he's the best director out of all of them, which we'll get into why further on. And then we have this, Hiroshima Mon Amour, directed by Alain Resnais, I hope I say that right. And all of those films did really interesting things in terms of filmmaking, and really broke a lot of rules and did a lot of things you don't normally do in film. And those films all were extremely successful, very influential, and kickstarted the whole movement, where it was a lot of trying to mix style and substance and just trying out different weird things. And the French New Wave had these huge ripple effects throughout the rest of the world. Hollywood films became more experimental and weird, especially in the 60s and 70s. It sort of revitalized the Hollywood market even. You can see their influence on a lot of different foreign films at the time, and a lot of people, even today and throughout the 90s, being inspired by the French New Wave. But my personal opinion on the French New Wave is I'm very hit or miss with it. I don't like Godard, or at least specifically I don't like Breathless. I haven't tried Godard's other films, admittedly. But Breathless just feels like someone who thinks they're really smart and cool, trying to convince you that they're really smart and cool, which at the time I bet it was. At the time I bet you it was super influential, super exciting, but coming, 50, 60 years after its release, it's not as impactful, and it feels very, it's hard for me to get through. I don't think I've ever finished Breathless. I've tried to watch it 3 times. I've never gotten through it. I get near the end, I give up. But I love Francois Truffaut. I love Agnes Varda. I think they're incredible directors who are able to take solid foundations and do interesting things within them. Like later on, we'll be talking about Jules and Jim, which I think is a beautiful, fantastic romance film that's done in a very unique way. And Agnes Varda, of course, is like Cleo from 5 to 7, which is a really great character study, a little intimate drama. But how do we feel about Hiroshima Mon Amour? Well, I'm a little mixed on it, and we'll get into that more, but first with the plot. The film sort of begins with almost like a short film. It reminds me of the beginning of Ingmar Bergman's Persona, where it's just sort of a character narrating over images of Hiroshima in the modern day, talking about remembering and history and sort of the tragedy that took place there. And it's probably my favorite part of the movie. It's a very engaging opening. It's a very interesting little snippet of the film that sort of sets you into the mood of the film, where it's going to be dealing with time, with memory, and with really engaging and clearly influential editing that connects ideas through cutting and connects time and different places and events through the editing. From there, we soon meet a woman who is a French actress and a Japanese man who they are clearly having a romantic relationship, or at least a one-night stand. and the Japanese man is sort of very infatuated with her, and the French woman, it's a little unclear if she is, or if she is just sort of like trying to hide her feelings. But they do try to spend the day together, spends more time with each other, and then it's eventually revealed that the French woman in her hometown had, or like her first love, was a German soldier, while her French town was occupied by the Nazis. And from there we get a history of her trauma. We realize that due to her mental state and due to just how traumatic this event is, it forces her to sort of blur the lines between past and present, and is sort of unable to fully process and deal with everything and become close with other people. So going off of that, Hiroshima Mon Amour is a film that I really admire and I really respect. Because the editing, as I said, feels very modern and clearly inspired a lot of films, even to this day. There's a lot of great match cuts, there's a lot of great connection, there's a lot of great visual connections. One of my favorite examples, it's very early on, is when the French actress is looking down at the Japanese man, and he's lying on the bed with like his hand back like this, and they have a close-up of the hand, and then hard cut to a soldier who's lying dead, and like the hand is like twitching a little bit, clearly connecting those two, and also connecting, and also seeing how her brain connects these ideas. And from what I understand from the special features, from the commentary and everything, no one was doing that at this time, you know. And just from my own experience watching films made before this one, I can see that it was something a lot of people didn't experiment with. And Resnais, you know, for his part, really innovated in that. He really tested the limits of that. And the editing itself is very much tied to the plot and to the characters, which helps to make it not seem jarring or weird, or if he's showing off. It is a vital part of the film and of the structure. I also think the main actors are really great, even though their characters are a little vague, especially the Japanese man, who was played by Eiji Okada. His character is definitely very vague, and intentionally so. But Emmanuelle Riva, which if you've seen Amour, which released in 2012, 2013, that's her. And she really carries the movie. From what I understand, she wasn't a super experienced actress, but it's you can't really tell it here. She has so much emotional depth, and I think without her, the movie wouldn't work. And especially when we get more into her past and the trauma she's dealt with, it's very clear that very few actresses could pull this off convincingly. And then near the end, when she's really breaking down, I think she really sells it. So while I have a lot of good things to say about Hiroshima Mon Amour, I think it's a movie that ultimately doesn't really connect with me. I feel like I understand what it's going for. I feel like it's definitely trying to look at this woman's mental state and the connection between time and how it's perceived, and how, like, you know, the past can really influence our present, either in sort of this woman's case where her first love, the trauma related to her first love affects her love life in the present, while the Japanese man, I mean, clearly is affected by the events of Hiroshima and the effects it had on the country. But I don't know if it does a great job fleshing out both sides. It does a great job of talking about Hiroshima and the effects it had on people in general, but I don't really feel like I get a good sense of how it affects this one man. But I completely understand how the Nazi occupation and her first love affects the French woman. And so it seems almost one-sided to me. It seems not as fleshed out as it could be. And in general, these characters just I don't know, I don't really connect with them. I'm not really invested in their relationship. I'm invested in the French woman in the sense that she went through some horrible stuff, and Emmanuelle Riva is fantastic. But I just kind of get to the end, and especially with the weird, ambiguous ending, which I won't talk about here, but it's definitely still not quite 100% sure what they're going for there. I feel like it doesn't fully work. I feel like it was a movie that was very surprising and very engaging at the time, But I feel like so many movies have taken influence from it and done what it's attempting to do better. Either the relationship between time, comparing two different types of traumas. Most notably, I kept getting vibes of The Nightingale, which is probably the best example I've seen of comparing a personal trauma to a nationwide, large-scale trauma. Which, please watch that movie. That's a criminally underseen film. I don't know. I think it's a movie that I admire, I appreciate, and I think I understand where it's coming from and its importance and why people like it. But it's just not for me, unfortunately. I don't know if it's something I really will ever go back to. I don't know if it's something I'll ever really be engaged with ever again. Even still, I don't regret this purchase. I don't regret buying Hiroshima Mon Amour because of the amazing special features, which do a really great job at sort of explaining what is so important and vital about this movie. There's a great interview with a film scholar, Francois Thomas, which really goes in depth about the film's production and its impact afterwards and what it did that was so different than any other movie. You have interviews with the director, you have interviews with Emmanuel Riva. There's an interview about the score, which I didn't mention that. The score is fantastic. The score, I think it's like 3 or 4 songs, but they're all really impactful, really good. The cinematography is also really great, very beautiful. The shots of just like the close-ups of like their arms wrapped around each other, it's incredible. It's really great stuff. And then you have this really developed in-depth booklet where we have a essay from Kent Jones, who previously did an essay on the Royal Tenenbaums. And there's also excerpts from Cahiers du Cinéma, which about the film, which if you don't know that's the French magazine where Truffaut and Godard and a lot of French New Wave critics and directors and filmmakers came from, where they sort of got their start. So it's a great release, and especially for people who are fans of the film, this has to be like a gold mine, you know? And so while Hiroshima Mon Amour isn't for me, it's not a film that I really connected with, it is a film I ultimately recommend, especially for film historians or people wanting to get more into French film and the French New Wave. It's a very important film. It's a film that I think has a lot of good ideas and a good foundation and many good parts that don't necessarily make a compelling or great whole. But I'd still recommend it overall. But thank you all so much for watching. Do you like Hiroshima Mon Amour? What do you think of the French New Wave? Let me know in the comments. Please remember to like and share the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more videos, and especially if you want to see the next one, where we will be returning to Akira Kurosawa. We're going to be talking about Ikaru, which is probably Kurosawa's most human and emotional film. But either way, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.